we doing here? Hey, my name is Grace. I'm gonna do the 2021 book survey tag. I got this from Gabby. I think she might have been the one that made it up. It's basically like a list of superlatives for your reading year, and so I just wanted to, it sounded fun. So that's what I'm gonna do today. Okay, number one, how many books did you read? So far, it's the 23rd of December. I've read 112 books. I think in 2020, I maybe read 4. So I really, I really picked up reading again this year, and it's been amazing, and I love it so much. And I'm really grateful for, like, reading has reintroduced itself into my life in the way that reading has changed my life. And yeah, so I've read 112. When I started reading again in February, and I think I read like 8 books that month. So it was pretty clear from the beginning that I was like going at a pretty rapid pace. My initial goal that I put was like 52, because I was like, okay, if I, do 5 books a month, I think that's, well, that's not, not the math, but that is certainly what I thought at the time, as is evidenced by the fact that that's what I just said. I think my initial goal was 52, and as I got closer to 52, I would up my goal, and as I got closer to that goal, I would increase and increase. So my goal was 100 ultimately, and I have surpassed that. At my peak, I read 15 books in 1 month. August was it's my birthday month, big month for me, and I read 15 books. So the most read genre for the year was romance. So out of the 100 plus books I read, 37 of them were romance, and then a close second is contemporary, and like 36 of the books I read were contemporary. Shortest book I read this year was 84 Charing Cross Road by Helen Hamp, and I really loved this. It's like less than 100 pages. I think I read this in an hour, but it is a like epistolary book, so it's letters back and forth from this woman in New York to this bookshop in London and England somewhere. I think in London. And it's just really sweet and funny and full of heart, and just shows the connection that books can foster. So that was the shortest book. The longest book I read is House of Leaves. This book is so huge. House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. It's like textbook pages. Like, it is a thick boy. I was having a bit of a rough mental health morning, a rough start to the day, and I have the day off from work. I was feeling really, I was crying, was feeling sad, and I'll be, by golly, if every time I feel horrible, I go like do a mile, walking, running, jogging, and then I take a shower, put on a little bit of makeup, and I feel 9 times out of 10, 100 times better. So that's why my hair is wet, in case anybody was wondering. Nobody was. My favorite book that was published in 2021 is Cultish by Amanda Montel. I had a lot of fun with this one, got some tabbies. This is a nonfiction book that looks at the use of language in cults and in cult adjacent groups and behavior. And so like the kind of words that we use and how we use our words to basically like control and manipulate people. And it talks about like, what are cults all bad? And so it's anywhere, it kind of discusses and evaluates cultish behavior from like Branch Davidian and like the Manson family, all the way to LuLaRoe and SoulCycle and CrossFit and everything in between. So I had so much fun. I read this like within 24 hours. This is my favorite book I read that was published in 2021. My favorite book I read that was not published this year was The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This is not the edition I read out of. This is like the collector's edition I got for the 10-year anniversary. But this is my favorite book. I actually read it twice this year, and yeah, I love it. This is also a book that really lived up to the hype. That's the second prompt. Book that lived up to the hype, Song of Achilles. I would also say The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. It is like all over Book Talk and Bookstagram and BookTube, like a really, 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 really popular romance, and it totally lives up to the hype. I loved that book. It was like 5 out of 5, exactly what I wanted from a romance. Super fun. A book that did not live up to the hype for me was The Death of Vivek Oji by Akwaeke Emezi. I was really expecting a lot from that book because everybody that I follow that has read that book like praises it, and the writing was beautiful and the representation was beautiful. However, like the main, and this is a spoiler, but like the main relationship and like romance plot line is incestuous, which I don't know. That's like, I was unable to like get behind that storyline. So yeah, that one it fell flat for me for that reason. Book that felt like the biggest accomplishment. Reading House of Leaves. It felt like that book is so dense. So for those that don't know, House of Leaves is okay, how do I explain it? There's a haunted house. There is a documentary about that haunted house. There's a book about the documentary, and then somebody finds that book and annotates it. And that's what this is. It is so wild. Honestly, this book gets 5 stars for the craft and for the brain power that it took to create it. It is spooky and dense and bizarre. It really takes a whole bunch of different forms. There are times when you have to it's like a textbook. There are times when you have to flip the book upside down, just multiple like blank pages. It's just, yeah, there we go. It's wild. And so getting to the end of it felt like a real triumph. Cheers. Oh God, for a second I thought I wasn't recording and I would have been so upset. Favorite character would have to be like the entire cast of Lore Olympus. Lore Olympus is it's a webtoon comic that has started to get published. I don't have the book version. Maybe Santa will get it for me for Christmas. But it is a like fun retelling adaptation of like Hades and Persephone and Greek myth and other Greek mythology stories are intertwined. But the cast, first of all, the art is incredible and it just makes you love the characters. But like the characters are so fun, and because in the webtoon form you just get like a bite-sized piece of the story each week, you really feel like, I don't know, I feel like you really, really get to know the characters. And so I'm excited to start collecting the graphic novel form as it gets published, because that has been one of my most joyful and enjoyable reads the whole year. The most shocking moment in a book I read this year was probably, and this is a spoiler, so if you don't want to, was Matthias dying. I was very upset. I recall gasping. I was upset. And then I was thinking about it for like days after. I remember waking up and going to work the next day after having finished this book, and I was not okay. Like I can see in my mind's eye, like me driving down a particular street thinking about him and this book. Yeah. Favorite couple? My favorite couple from a book that I've read is probably also Hades and Persephone from Lore Olympus. I think the format lends itself to you like really getting to know the characters and spending a lot of time with them. Okay, the best written book I've read all year, hands down, not a question, no competition. I mean, for crying out loud, all the tabbies. This book is the answer for like 5 upcoming questions. This book is special and important and incredible and is written so like breathtakingly. It's incredible. This is also the book that I pushed the most people to read in 2021, which is the next prompt. I want everybody I know to read this book. I did a presentation in one of my classes about sexism, and I found a way to incorporate a quote from this, and I took precious time in my presentation to say, everybody needs to read this book. And they do. And you do. And I would encourage you to read it. My favorite book cover of the year has got to be, and you've already seen it, this Song of Achilles anniversary edition. It's just like really, really beautiful. And I love this book so much. And so now that I have kind of been rearranging my shelves, I have it like on display in all of its glory. A favorite book adaptation, I can't really, Dune. Duh. I thought the Dune movie was excellent, and I loved the book. I think my mom is borrowing that book, which is why I forgot about it. I loved Dune the book, and I thought that the movie was so good, like beat for beat almost. Just a really, really good adaptation. Book that made you cry the most? Okay. Book that made me laugh the most. Now this guy... This is a new edition. I finished this book yesterday. This is Priest Daddy by Patricia Lockwood, and it is tied with freaking Know My Name by Chanel Miller for, I think, the best book I've read all year. This is like the opposite end of the spectrum from Know My Name. But I laughed out loud so much. I can't count the number of times, like, well, you just can't see any of them, that I annotated like LOL. I promise it's there. I promise, somewhere. Well, you'll have to take my word for it. I laughed out loud so much reading that book. Never mind the fact that it bears several resemblances to my own life and family in childhood, which was wild. But it is really freaking funny, and I would also highly recommend you read that book. New author discovered, like pretty much all of them. Like I said, picking up reading again this year was like the big like watershed moment for me for the whole year. And so falling in love with these books and with language and writing and reading again has been like so life-giving and wonderful. And so all of these authors are new to me, pretty much. My favorite book I reread, again, is anybody surprised? I reread Song of Achilles. I read it, I think, for the first time in February, and then I did an audiobook reread in September. The audiobook is so good, and I struggle with audiobooks typically. Like, I don't get the same experience from them. I don't get the same level of like immersion in the story or understanding. But the Song of Achilles audiobook is so... The narrator has this like gorgeous voice. He's got such a beautiful, like calming voice. And then that coupled with like the lyrical poetic prose of Madeline Miller is like sublime. So that is an audiobook that I loved, and I will reread again and again. Two other shout outs, some honorable mentions for rereads were The Hating Game, which was, I think, the first romance. Maybe I read Outlander first, but this is the first like contemporary romance I read this year. And absolutely, the gateway drug set me on the path to freaking contemporary romance. I read it twice. I made my friends read it. It's just a good time. The movie that just came out, not that great, but that's okay because we always have the book. And the book is just excellent. Another book I did a reread of that was a 5-star was The House in the Cerulean Sea. Precious vibes. I really love this book. On my reread, I did the tabbies. I did something new with like where they were in the, anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah, this book is about a caseworker named Linus who gets called to this children's home for like magical children, and it's like a found family cast of characters that is so special and sweet and tenderhearted. And I was worried that on the second read, I wouldn't feel all the feels, but I did. And yeah. And then last one is the best nonfiction book I've read this year. And that has got to be How the Word is Passed by Clint Smith. Wow. Again with, that's just how you know it's good, you guys. That's how you know it's good. This was kind of part of my school did a book discussion. It was like optional, but if you said you wanted to do it, they would give you the book, and then we like met on Zoom and talked about it. This is about slavery in the United States and the way that the thread of slavery has continued into our modern day society through the things we celebrate and the people that we celebrate and like idolize and memorialize. And it kind of goes through various locations in the United States where there are like certain memorials or certain buildings that have ties to slavery. And it was just like so excellently written. He's a poet, and you can tell because like in the midst of this nonfiction book that is like educational, you get this like you will get like really, really gorgeous imagery. So this was the best nonfiction book I've read all year. And that's it. That's my reading survey for the year. You guys, reading is like so wonderful, and I'm so glad that I have reading in my life. And I want you to know that if you want to read, you freaking can. You can go to the library and get a library card for free and check out any book you want. If it's romance, if it's a classic, if it's sci-fi. And yeah, so I hope you had a good time. Let me know what some of your favorite reads were for the year. And yeah, thanks for watching.